Will Smith, a man once celebrated worldwide for his radiant smile, explosive talent, and a life that seemed perfect. Yet hidden behind the lights and the applause lies a truth few could ever imagine, a heart burdened with pain. At 56, his image is no longer tied only to glory, but also to tragedies that left fans stunned. What happened to the star once known as the man who had it all? Why did a Hollywood icon, once seen as unbreakable, begin to show the deepest cracks in his soul? Join us as we uncover the untold story behind the smile that seemed destined to last forever. Willard Carroll Smith Jr., better known as Will Smith, was born in 1968 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His childhood was far from the picture of a happy family many might expect of a future superstar. His father, a former U.S. Air Force veteran, was a strict disciplinarian who often unleashed his anger on his wife and children. In his memoir Will, Smith recalled the haunting memory of seeing his father hit his mother, and the helplessness of being unable to protect her. This wound left a permanent scar, giving him a lifelong sense of guilt that he was never enough to keep his family safe. Despite the trauma, Will displayed a unique talent for making people laugh and lightening heavy atmospheres. At school, he was nicknamed Prince Charming for his charisma and witty talk. Humor became his coping mechanism, and in the chaos of childhood, music offered salvation. He fell in love with rap at an early age, scribbling rhymes in notebooks and challenging himself with playful verses. At 16, he met Jeffrey Towns, a young DJ from the same neighborhood. Together, they formed DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, a duo known for lighthearted, family-friendly rap, a stark contrast to the gritty hip-hop scene of the time. In 1988, they made history by winning the first-ever Grammy Award for rap with Parents Just Don't Understand. It was a milestone that turned the boy from Philadelphia into a rising star in the American music industry. But success quickly gave way to financial turmoil. At the height of his career, Smith squandered money on lavish houses, cars, and endless parties. Worse, he signed with a dubious management company. By his early 20s, he owed the IRS more than $2.8 million in taxes. With most of his accounts drained, the U.S. tax agency even seized many of his possessions. In later interviews, Smith admitted he had fallen asleep on success, treating fame as if it would never fade. The crushing debt forced him to face reality: fame doesn't guarantee financial security. During this crisis, he accepted an audition for the sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That role not only rescued him financially but also launched him into television stardom and opened the door to Hollywood. Looking back, it's clear that the pain of his childhood drove him toward music as a refuge. The memories of violence shaped his ability to tell stories and connect with audiences on an emotional level. Meanwhile, the financial disaster of his youth taught him hard lessons in humility and discipline. Behind the glow of later stardom, the shadows of his early years and youthful mistakes lingered, reminding Will Smith that no triumph comes without harsh trials. After his early financial troubles, Will Smith opened a new chapter when he joined the sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in 1990. Initially insecure about his lack of formal acting training, he quickly won over audiences with his charm and natural humor. The series followed the story of a street-smart kid from Philadelphia moving into a wealthy relative's mansion in Bel-Air. With witty dialogue, comic timing, and a blend of street flair and lighthearted comedy, Smith became a breakout star. Over 6 seasons, the sitcom not only turned him into a cultural icon but also became one of the most recognizable shows of the 1990s. From television success, Smith transitioned to the big screen, a risky move where many sitcom actors faltered. In 1995, he starred alongside Martin Lawrence in the action comedy Bad Boys. Playing Detective Mike Lowry, he helped the film gross over $140 million worldwide and established himself as a fresh face in the action comedy genre. The following year brought Independence Day, 1996, Roland Emmerich's sci-fi blockbuster. The film grossed more than $800 million globally, making Smith a bona fide A-list star. His role as pilot Stephen Hiller, battling an alien invasion, showcased his ability to combine action with humor, a trademark that defined his career. In 1997, Men in Black paired him with Tommy Lee Jones, earning more than $589 million and spawning a long-running franchise. As Agent J, Smith's mix of wit and quick thinking won worldwide audiences. Even the theme song Men in Black, performed by Smith himself, topped the Billboard charts, cementing his rare dual success in both music and film simultaneously. He continued building momentum with Enemy of the State, 1998, demonstrating his skill in tense, dramatic roles. Though Wild Wild West, 1999, underperformed, it reflected Smith's willingness to experiment and step beyond his comfort zone. By the early 2000s, Will Smith was no longer just a TV phenomenon. He had become a box office powerhouse, headlining hits like Men in Black 2, 2002, I, Robot, 2004, and Hitch, 2005, which highlighted his range by dominating the romantic comedy genre. From his start as a young rapper, Smith had transformed into a global superstar, known for both his versatility and star power. Looking back, it's clear that his journey from sitcom newcomer to Hollywood heavyweight exemplifies the rewards of taking risks and seizing opportunities. The 1990s didn't just bring Smith a string of successes, they laid the foundation for his lasting reputation as a true icon of American cinema. Even at the peak of his fame, Will Smith has always carried a deep emptiness inside. His extraordinary success on screen was never enough to silence the insecurity that haunted him since childhood. In his memoir Will, he confessed that he constantly lived with fear of failure, fear of not being truly loved, and above all, fear that he was never good enough to deserve the affection of others. Born into a turbulent household, Will's childhood was marked by violence and instability. His father, strict and at times abusive, left scars that never fully healed. Growing up in that environment, Will learned to hide his pain by making people laugh, always trying to please others as a way to mask his inner fear. When he entered Hollywood, the spotlight brought him fame but also chained him to an unforgiving cycle. Will revealed that every time a movie became a hit, instead of enjoying it, he would immediately worry, how can the next one be even bigger? His career, spanning Independence Day, Men in Black, Ali, and The Pursuit of Happiness, made him a global superstar, yet deep down he feared being forgotten. In his memoir, Will describe sleepless nights, not because of a lack of work, but because of the loneliness that consumed him. Surrounded by hundreds of admirers at glamorous parties, he still felt out of place. No one could touch the emptiness I was hiding inside, he admitted. There were even times he sank into depression, feeling like a performing machine rather than a human being. The pressure to succeed became an invisible prison. To maintain the image of the perfect star, Will sacrificed rest, health, and inner peace. He worked tirelessly, set higher and higher goals, and forgot that he too needed to breathe. Looking back, he admitted, I spent years just trying to prove I was good enough, important enough. But the more I tried to prove it, the emptier I felt. These revelations helped the public see that behind the dazzling smile on the red carpet, Will Smith is still a human being carrying unhealed wounds. He may inspire millions, but his greatest lesson has been learning to forgive himself and to accept that a person's worth is not defined solely by success or failure. It is an inner journey that many relate to, finding pieces of their own struggles reflected in his story. The marriage of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith was once praised as a Hollywood fairy tale. They first met in the early 1990s, when Jada was a young actress on the rise and Will was already making waves in film. Their 1997 wedding was described as the start of a model artistic family, talented, famous, and united by the dream of building a lasting home. With the arrival of their children, Jaden and Willow, the Smiths seemed to embody the perfect family in the eyes of the public. Yet behind the glamorous facade was a turbulent journey. Both admitted that their marriage was far from perfect. At times, Will and Jada separated, living apart in an attempt to better understand themselves and face their conflicts. Will once confessed that he felt powerless when he couldn't make his wife truly happy, while Jada openly said she had felt suffocated in the role of being married to a global superstar. One of the most controversial revelations was their admission of living in an open relationship. The announcement sparked endless debate. Some saw it as an act of honesty, while many others criticized it as proof of deep cracks in their marriage. Their choice raised a haunting question: can love coexist with outside relationships, or is it merely a veil over a painful truth? The real tragedy unfolded in 2020, when Jada admitted during a public conversation that she had been romantically involved with young singer August Alsina during their marriage. The word entanglement, used by Jada to describe the situation, quickly became a global meme. The internet overflowed with jokes, parody videos, and sarcastic comments aimed at Will. A man once seen as the embodiment of Hollywood strength now appeared more fragile than ever. His sad eyes and forced smile in that interview became an unforgettable image for millions of viewers. Will, who had long projected confidence and power on screen, was suddenly revealed in his deepest vulnerability. For many, it was a shock not just to his image but to their empathy. He admitted that the pain of marriage was the greatest tragedy of his life, because it could not be solved with money or fame. No matter how successful his career was, the fractures in love made him realize he was as fragile as anyone else. This story reminded the world that behind Hollywood's glittering curtain are real people with real wounds. Will Smith is not only an action star or a face that brings laughter, but also a man learning to accept the scars of marriage as part of his life journey. And it is precisely this pain that has made him more relatable and sympathetic in the eyes of millions around the globe. The 2022 Academy Award should have been the most glorious night of Will Smith's career. Yet in a matter of seconds, it turned into a global earthquake. When comedian Chris Rock made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head, Will walked onto the stage and suddenly slapped him across the face, live, in front of millions. The sharp sound, along with Chris Rock's stunned expression, spread like wildfire, becoming one of the most replayed clips worldwide within minutes. That single action shook Hollywood. No one talked about the films or the golden statues anymore, all eyes focused on the slap. Back at his seat, with red eyes, Will shouted, "Keep my wife's name out of your mouth," echoing through the silent auditorium. Hours later, he stepped back onto the stage to accept the Oscar for Best Actor for his role in King Richard. What should have been the crowning moment of his decades-long career was entirely overshadowed by the scandal. Public opinion was sharply divided. Some argued that Will was simply defending his wife's honor, an act of fierce love. But many more condemned it as unjustifiable violence, especially at the film industry's most prestigious event. Global headlines erupted, social media filled with debates, memes, and frame-by-frame analyses of the shocking moment. For a star who had built his reputation on warmth and charm, the slap became a permanent crack in his image. The consequences followed swiftly. The Academy convened and announced a historic penalty: Will Smith would be banned from the Oscars and all related events for 10 years. Several major projects, including Bad Boys 4 and Fast and Loose, were suspended or cancelled. Big brands hesitated to collaborate, fearing backlash. A reputation built over 3 decades collapsed overnight, all from a moment of lost control. What pained many fans even more was the image of Will in the aftermath. In the days following, he disappeared from the spotlight, only to resurface with heartfelt apologies to Chris Rock, colleagues, and viewers. He admitted he had acted wrongly, calling it a moment of weakness he would carry for life. Yet apologies could not erase the fallout. His once brilliant career was suddenly in jeopardy, and the image of the man who had it all now seemed like a memory from the past. The slap was more than a scandal, it was a turning point. It marked the fall of Will Smith from the height of glory to the depths of doubt and isolation. For many, it stood as proof that a single mistake and a fleeting moment can destroy an entire lifetime of success. And from that night on, the story of Will Smith ceased to be only about triumph, it became a sobering reminder of the price of losing control. After all the turmoil, Will Smith has tried to return to art and to his audience. He has taken on new projects, stepped back into the spotlight with his familiar smile, as if to prove he had not fallen. Yet behind the stage lights, he continues to live with wounds that never fully heal. His marriage with Jada Pinkett Smith goes on, but the fractures remain. Years of arguments, distance, and misunderstandings have left the relationship fragile, like a rope pulled too tight. Both admitted they had stood on the edge of separation many times, and though they chose to stay together, peace has never truly returned. The pain has not only come from marriage but also from fatherhood. His son Jaden shocked many when, at just 15, he declared he wanted to move out to prove his independence. Willow, his daughter, went through her own turbulent teenage years, expressing rebellion through haunting songs and confessions of loneliness. Will admitted that moments like these made him feel powerless, as if everything he had worked to build for his family was slipping away. He has also confessed to being haunted by the fear of aging. Crossing into his midlife years, he worried about being overtaken by younger generations, about the day when leading roles would no longer come. In his memoir, he wrote of sleepless nights imagining a future where he was no longer at the top, no longer called Hollywood's leading man. For someone so accustomed to the spotlight, facing the silence of time was excruciating. His film career, of course, continues. New movies are released, and loyal fans remain supportive. Yet the glow is not as complete as it once was. Each time he appears, audiences are reminded not only of his brilliant performances but also of his scandals and personal struggles. The shadow of those memories makes it difficult for him to reclaim the untarnished, powerful image he once embodied. Perhaps the greatest tragedy for Will Smith is not the infamous Oscar slap, nor the harsh criticism that followed. What hurts him most is the sense of losing peace within his own family, the place that should have been his safest harbor. A turbulent marriage, children growing up with their own scars, all of it taught him that public success could never fill the emptiness at home. From the man who had it all, Will Smith has become a man searching for balance. The journey is filled with pain, but it has also allowed the public to see him differently, not just as a superstar, but as a human being with real wounds. And perhaps, in that vulnerability, he has become more authentic and relatable than ever before. At 56, Will Smith is no longer the carefree young man with the radiant smile that once captivated millions. Time has etched its marks on his face and in his eyes, where experience mingles with an undeniable sadness. The spotlight still follows him, but its glow no longer feels the same. He walks slower, speaks less, and often drifts into silence when confronting his own thoughts. For many, this age is a moment of peace after decades of chasing dreams. For Will, it has become a stage filled with heavy reflection. He has admitted to feeling lost at times, even while the world still regards him as one of Hollywood's biggest stars. When the lights fade and the crowd disappears, he faces a raw truth: loneliness is not so easily erased. In rare interviews, Will has spoken about his fear of aging. No longer young enough to lead the biggest blockbusters, no longer innocent enough to ignore the scars of the past, he now faces the quiet in between. He has described himself as a warrior who has fought too many battles, only to realize that victory no longer brings the same joy it once did. At this stage, Will spends more time looking back on his life. He reflects on mistakes that brought regret, on choices that carried heavy consequences, and even on successes that sometimes became burdens. Every step now carries deeper meaning, not to prove himself to the world, but to answer the question, who is he without the glow of fame? What touches audiences is how his outlook has shifted. Where once he chased perfection, he now admits perfection is unattainable. The wrinkles, the failures, and the invisible wounds all stand as markers of a journey lived. He has learned that true strength sometimes comes not from control, but from the courage to acknowledge weakness. And yet, Will has not lost his will to live fully. He continues to work, to create, and to give. His return is not about reclaiming the highest peak, but about finding balance. To many, he is no longer just a star, but a human being in the truest sense, someone who has loved, stumbled, suffered, and is still trying to rise from the fragments of his past. Will Smith's story at 56 resonates deeply. It reminds us that behind the dazzling spotlight, stars are also human, with joys, sorrows, and wounds that cannot be erased. What inspires is not perfection, but his ability to show that even after breaking down, one can still find a way to stand tall. In the end, his journey leaves us with a timeless message. Sometimes, true strength lies not in perfection, but in the ability to rise from the cracks of life itself. It is not only his story, but a lesson for us all.